Hello, everybody. It's me, Fee, or Fiona Timms, otherwise known as White Zulu, author of my autobiography of the same name. And I welcome you all to another chapter of my book. I do hope you're all enjoying my life story, and I must thank all of you for being such dedicated subscribers, especially those who have written such complimentary comments below my videos. They are much appreciated. I would like to point out that the previous South African flag hanging on the wall behind me is not a political statement. It is simply a piece of history in the background of my first 50 years of my life, being born and growing up in my beloved mother country, South Africa. My autobiography, White Zulu, is not a political commentary, and frankly describes my experiences of growing up with the Zulu tribe as my family. That flag is simply a piece of cloth signifying the history of South Africa. It was originally used by the Union of South Africa from 1928 to 1961, and later the Republic of South Africa until 1994.
Bar and Bob were due to fly into Durban at midday, and as I was going to pick them up, I'd had my green Mini washed and polished for the occasion. Fred had opted to go to work for the day, but at that stage it hadn't occurred to me why. The day was a typical early summer's day in Durban, with a steamy, stifless, relentless heat which baked my little car to the temperature of a bread oven. It had no air conditioning. Very few cars did in the late 60s in South Africa. And certainly British Leyland had no such thing on their basic models. By the time I'd driven out to Louis Botha Airport on the outskirts of Durban and parked in the sun, I had perspiration trickling down my back, dampening the smart cotton dress I'd worn for the occasion. I'd even put on a pair of stockings and shoes instead of my usual bare legs and sandals, and I was already regretting that decision, planning to whip them off at the first opportunity. Their plane landed, and passengers began walking down the steps. Fred had shown me a photo of his parents, so I could identify them, and I searched faces as they appeared in the doorway of the plane. Then I saw the tartan. Because of the high altitude, it's a lot cooler in Johannesburg than Durban at this time of the year, and that morning Bar had dressed up in a full Mackay tartan outfit. She had a little tartan pillbox hat perched rakishly on her stiff bouffant helmet of hair, with its ram's horn curl over each eyebrow, a hairstyle identical to the Queen's, which she's worn throughout her lengthy reign. A tartan sash over a long-sleeved white silk blouse, complete with a large silver brooch at her throat, a floor-length tartan kilt. She wore black stockings and patent leather court shoes. The Mackay dress tartan is a lovely dark green with an interwoven deep blue and purple colour, or interwoven deep blue and can't say it, purple colours, and perfect for the Scottish Highlands. Not so perfect for a Durban summer day. I saw her gasp and reel back as the full blast of heat caught her in the face. Stepping out into our tropical air after the cool of the air-conditioned interior of their plane was like opening the door of a very hot oven to baste a roast turkey. She staggered a bit as they came down the steps, and they both lurched over to the main building where I was waiting for them, each shakily trying to light a cigarette, in spite of the no smoking signs posted all over the apron of the arrivals area. She was short, lean, and wiry, with a way of planting her small feet wide, so that under the ankle-length skirt it looked as though she had bandy legs, rather like a child's drawing of a triangle for the dress, and they stick one leg on each corner at the base. I couldn't see her face properly, as she wore huge round sunglasses, but there was a fuzz of blonde hair on her upper lip. "Darling!" she cried in a hoarse, strange, exaggerated Scottish accent, and flung her arms out wide to greet me. "We've discovered cane spirit. They were serving it free on the flight, and it's lovely with orange juice. You can hardly taste it, and I was so hot and thirsty that I drank gallons." As all we Safis know, cane spirit is an innocuous tasting, almost 100% proof alcohol, distilled from sugar cane, and even South Africans, well-known hard drinkers, treat it with a lot of respect and drink it very cautiously. Bob was scarcely in better shape. He was about a head taller than Bar, balding, and had a florid, mottled face with wattle-like jowls. He had a big belly and skinny legs with rather strange knocked knees. Apparently, he'd injured one of them in a rugby match many years ago when he was at university, and now he walked as though his knees were roped together. I hastily collected their bags from the carousel to raucous shrieks of, "My hat! Do be careful! Don't crush my wedding hat!" from Bar, which had heads of other passengers snapping around in alarm, expecting to see an escaped macaw, but then nudging each other slyly at the strange, noisy foreign woman. By the time we'd woven our way through the crowd to the exit, Bar's accent had puzzlingly changed to a ripe American Southern drawl. My Minnie had been standing in the baking sun for nearly an hour, as I'd arrived with a lot of time to spare, and I had to wrap my hand in the hem of my skirt to pull on the chrome door handle. I always kept an old beach towel in the car and used it to cover the black steering wheel to prevent me from burning my hands before I could start driving. The fake leather seats in the car were red hot, even after I'd fanned the open doors vigorously to try and cool the interior a bit. Bob yelped as he sat down, and the seat seared him on his backside right through his tartan trousers. "Jesus," he bellowed, "you never told us it was going to be this hot." I quickly handed him my towel, and Bar doubled her voluminous thick woolen skirt under herself for insulation on the back seat. "This isn't proper summer yet," I replied cautiously. "Our hot months are in January and February." I drove out of the airport parking area and onto the South Coast Highway as fast as I could get the little Minnie to go, to get some cooler air into the vehicle. I had all the windows open, and in my rear view mirror saw Bar clutching her stiffly lacquered hairdo with both hands. Her face had turned a mottled red, and there was perspiration running off her nose. She was visibly wilting. "I'm sorry," I called over my shoulder. "Do you want the windows up?" She just shook her head grimly and then turned to shriek with horror as a green Durban Corporation bus, also known as a green mamba, belching clouds of black smoke, packed 3 deep with Zulus, and driven by a demented Indian, changed lanes with no warning, and cut across the Mini's bonnet as if it wasn't there. I had to jam on my brakes, and both rather unsteady Mackays lurched forward with a sharp jerk. "I'm sorry, this is Africa and how most of its population drives," I said, apologetically, and then had to swerve violently to the right as a minibus taxi, also well overloaded with passengers, and with the added hazard of piles of bulging sacks and some live chickens in a crate strapped firmly to the roof rack, shot past me on the left, having used the breakdown lane to stop for passengers to climb aboard, and cut back into my lane with barely an inch to spare, leaving a flurry of white chicken feathers in its slipstream. My future in-laws had white knuckles by now, and I reckoned that they'd soon be in need of another stiff drink to steady their nerves. I was taking them to the Durban Country Club for lunch. This is, or was, a massive turn-of-the-century colonial clubhouse surrounded by about 100 acres of tall, indigenous trees and a lush green golf course, tennis courts, and situated on the beachfront on the north side of Durban. I'd been a full member of the club for only a few weeks, having started off as a junior member at the age of 16. And, whether we wanted to or not, our parents insisted that we go through the ritual of getting approved for our membership. As we neared our 16th birthday, we were to approach one of our parents' friends for sponsorship. We had to choose somebody who had good standing in society, like a judge or a surgeon, and formally approach him to put our names forward for membership. Once we were accepted, we became junior members until we reached the age of 20, when we became full members. Unless, of course, we managed to blot our copybooks by disgracing ourselves in any way, by disobeying the numerous and very strict rules. Senior club members used the blackball system as a secret weapon to keep riffraff out, and our parents made much of being members of the country club. My mother played tennis, and my father played golf there regularly, and it was their suggestion that I take my future in-laws there for lunch. I'd never really enjoyed the stifling social climbing atmosphere at the club. Everybody was too aware of who else was there and only went to be seen and schmooze with the right people. Just up my mother's street, of course. All our friends go to lunch there, and you meet such a nice type. The Mackay Jameses will love it. I drove through the imposing gates and parked. We walked up the sweep of steps into the cool gloom of the main entrance, where I signed them into the guest register, and we went through to the front veranda. Well to the right, beyond the dining room, was a plush pink changing room where lady golfers and tennis players showered and changed into fresh clothes after their games. An attendant held court there and handed out pink toweling robes and matching slippers to those who required them. Ladies who wanted to swim had to wear those robes over their bathing costumes and walk in the regulation slippers down a side path outside the clubhouse to a beautiful big swimming pool on the lawn in front of the main seating area on the huge shaded veranda where all the members had drinks and lunch. The dress code at the club was the strictest of all the rules. You could get roaring drunk and behave as bizarrely as you like, Liked, as long as you did it in club approval clothing. Ba saw the pool. Oh, lovely, she shrieked. Just what I need to cool off. And she dropped her handbag onto a nearby chair on the crowded veranda. Before I could say anything, she'd stripped off her tartan outfit, stockings, and shoes to reveal a tiny blue polka dot bikini she'd been wearing underneath her regalia, apparently for just this occasion. She dropped her clothes, stockings as well, in a heap on the floor, kicked off her shoes, ran down to the sparkling turquoise water to climb down the ladder into the deep end. There was a hiss of intaken breath from members and Indian waiters alike. Then there was the clatter of forks dropping onto china plates and old heads whipped round to the pile of discarded clothing. A shocked hush descended on the crowded veranda as every eye swiveled to watch the spectacle of my future mother-in-law, head held high to keep her hairdo dry, doing a sedate breaststroke majestically down the length of the pool. Darling, she bawled at me in her hoarse voice, won't you bring me my ciggies? An outraged buzzing ascended as everybody started discussing this extraordinary and abominable behaviour. And whose guest was this? The most outrageous behaviour of any of the country club guests had ever seen during nearly 100 years was when the odd vervet monkey ran off and up a tree with somebody's golf ball. There was even a special rule as how you could play on in those circumstances, written down for posterity. Bob seemed oblivious to any of this strange and totally inappropriate behaviour, and simply plumped his large behind down in a wicker chair under an umbrella, lit a cigar, and ordered himself a tall, cold lager. That evening, after I'd dropped his parents at their hotel and we were in Fred's flat, getting dressed up to take them out to dinner, I was describing my day to Fred. Oh, Mummy always does that, he said casually. She wears a bikini under her clothes all the time so that she can strip off and sunbathe at any opportunity wherever she is. We're all used to her. You could have warned me, I retorted, and we both collapsed with laughter at the spectacle she'd made. If only my parents had been there with us, I gasped as I wiped my eyes. They would have been absolutely humiliated at all their smart friends, witnessing the sight of their potential relatives by marriage, creating such a stir and attracting so much adverse attention. I wonder if it's a hot day on our wedding day, whether she'll strip off and jump into the river to cool off. Probably, said Fred, and I could see he wasn't joking. Oh, wow. That'll finish my mother off for sure. She's in such a flap about this wedding as it is, wanting every tiny detail to be perfect. That was meeting my future in-laws. More to come, the wedding. I'll see you next week. And I must thank John Moslane, my sound engineer, for making this possible. He does a sterling job in creating my platform to read from my autobiography, The White Zulu. Actually, White Zulu. Thank you for listening, and more next time. Bye-bye.
That is all for the time being, and there's more to come next week. I would like to thank John Moslane for putting aside his Friday afternoons to help me produce these videos. Without him, I could not do this. I would also like to thank Sean van Vuren for his sterling work in uploading my videos to my YouTube channel, adding the photos, as well as managing my channel so professionally. If you would like to know more about my other works, I have written 5 books in all, and each one is autobiographical. Please visit my website at www.whitezulubook.com, where you will find a lot more information as well as plenty of photographs. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you enjoyed my life story, and there is plenty more to come. A thumbnail photo will be attached each week, and thank you so much for all your support and all the very kind remarks you make in complimenting me on my work. I really appreciate it. Goodbye.